love wild lines. When I do get people, and I tell them it never hurts to take a moment, and I'll tell them, if you don't want to light it, and you're just so ashamed that the shot isn't going to be anything you want, then just take a picture of the microphone while the actors are talking, and have the microphone like right in the shot, so you know that this is just where we're getting the good audio. Because especially if the shot gets bigger and the actor gets smaller, it's real easy to paste the good audio over that picture. It's super duper easy to do that, and it works fine. And you gotta remember that making is a team sport. The great images are super duper wonderful, but if you can't hear what the actors are saying, what's your movie? What are you going to do? You're going to pass out copies of the script to the audience so they can read along because they can't understand what the actors are saying?
Yep, for sure. All right, are we ready to?
Oh, he's been recording.
Oh, he's. Oh, you're.
Oh, yeah.
And I should be practicing good mic technique.
No, that should
right there.
Just lay it right down there.
Right there. Okay.
Because the sound. Where is the sound?
Sound is right here.
It's a bubble.
It's a bubble. Yeah.
It's the whole upper body. It's the thorax, the chest. It's the lips, the mouth, the nasal cavities, the sinuses in your head, your jaw, your tongue, and it's all right out here in a little bubble. One of the big weaknesses of using hidden lavalier mics is that they're almost always hidden in bad places. First of all, and the only time, by the way, I suggest hiding the mic is when you're doing something dramatic, when you're telling a dramatic story. Because yes, having a microphone clipped on the clothing is going to suck you out of the story. But
because it sounds like a chest.
Not even because of the sound, just seeing a microphone, visible microphone. But if you're doing an interview, just like this one, you've got the mic here. Okay, sometimes the shot will exclude the mic, sometimes the shot will have the mic, but there's nothing wrong with seeing the mic in the shot. This is not a narrative story. This isn't gonna suck you out of the story, or it's not gonna detract from my message or your message, whoever's talking, because that's part of what we're doing. But when you hide a microphone, the hiding places that you have come with a whole string of disadvantages. First of all, you generally are going to have to hide them underneath clothing, and that's going to have an effect on the sound quality and the fact that there will be a real good chance of contact noise from the clothing touching the microphone. And that even extends, usually with lavalier microphones, to the clothing rubbing on the microphone, the little lavalier microphone cable down under the clothing. And a lot of times people will put a microphone right under here. Can we see this in the shot? Okay. And run the cable down under your shirt and then tuck it all into your pants. And the cable between here and your waist is stretched tight. And any little movement is going to be heard because it's in contact with the microphone itself. So you get the clothing rustle, you get the clothing muffling, and yes, you get an overemphasis of the chest, and the high stuff that's coming out here is being shielded from the microphone by the chin and jaw, and that's a different sound down there. So where's a good place if you have to use a microphone? Bingo, over here, put it right in the hairline and hide it there and run the cable through the hair, and if need be, you can paint those little lavalier microphones. The hair department on your set, we used to use, a favorite was Streaks and Tips. I believe that's a specific name of a product, but and stuff like streaks and tips to hide the microphone. You can even hide the microphone all the way back to here and hide it under the hair or by the earlobe. And the nice thing about this place to hide it is not only is it getting the sound in that bubble of the best sound that's right here in front of you, but as the head moves, another disadvantage with the mic down here is you're going to hear the change in sound, and if the mic is moving with the head, it never changes, so that's going to help. But basically all this hair hidden mic or hat hidden mic, brim of the hat, I mean improvise. But eyeglasses, I've done that before, but all those are doing is emulating the still champion boom microphone, which is sitting right up there over the actor, and generally a boom operator, unless it's something like we're fixed and sitting here. So you could put a boom right up here, out here, and it'll get us both, and even as we turn our heads, we'll be fine. But if you've got actors acting and moving and interfacing with each other and so forth, you want an operator who knows the script. It is important. I know all the new stuff is this just, everybody's just going to improvise and make magic. I got to tell you something about movies. Movies are all about storytelling. And you probably heard the phrase, the saying, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. You know, this thing about, especially when you're starting out and you don't have Robin Williams, rest in peace, in your cast. I've worked with Robin. Yeah, Robin Williams ad-libs all the time, but you know what? I worked with him on a number of his movies. And before he started fooling around and ad-libbing, he did the script the way it was written by the writer and got that down. I used to hear him because we did always keep a wireless mic on Mr. Williams. And I would hear him off rehearsing with the other actors, and they were rehearsing the script and how they were going to play it. And then, after the director was satisfied with what they had gotten, Mr. Williams would say, "Okay, now you've got what you need." He says, "Now let's try a few things. Can I play around for a couple takes?" And yes, he would do brilliant stuff. You know, I'm sure some of it was thought of in advance, and some of it he was truly brilliant like that, because when he and the other actors started ad-libbing, he would get funny stuff from their ad-libs and come back with stuff, and that was when you really heard his brilliance. But what most people probably wouldn't have thought is how he really starts out doing the script and working on getting the performance.
So then your boom op knows exactly where they need to be.
That's right. And like I said, we would always keep a wire on Mr. Williams, and I'm going back to the 90s now, back in the last millennium, back. And it wasn't the way it is now, where everybody goes out on every shoot and puts 15 wireless mics on 15 actors and says, "Okay, kids, go play." But what I meant when I brought up Mr. Williams as an example to go with this is I get less experienced, more beginning directors and movie makers and storytellers, and they don't have the experience, so they're still kind of learning, and that's fine. Everybody gets to learn. And you need it. And they're actors, they can't afford Robin Williams. So they get a lot of their friends who, of course, they know from being out drinking on Wednesday evening after something or another. "Oh, yeah, we always laugh and go crazy. They're terribly funny. So this will be great. I'm just going to set them loose and they'll make magic." And I gotta tell you, they don't make magic. Another movie I worked on had a bunch of well-known actors. This was a real studio type union movie, and the director wanted them to do a lot of the ad-libbing and making stuff up. And I gotta tell you how lame their ad-libs were. And frankly, they got to be very repetitive. He'd say, okay, now that we've done that, he says, I just want you guys to start, wisecracking back and forth. And, we'll have 5 cameras shooting, and we've got wires on everybody. And they start wisecracking back and forth, and it wasn't funny. And that stuff, frankly, didn't make it into the movie.
It's fascinating. So there are a couple questions. So one is that today it seems like the mentor-apprentice model isn't quite what it used to be. Did you have that kind of setup when you were getting started?
Oh yeah, that was and I got started relatively late because the studio system had already been crumbling for a good while, because once upon a time, and some of the people that I worked with and learned from would tell me about how, they started when they got out of school and they got a job working in the machine room with those great big old mag transfer machines, and they'd work down there for months and months and months, and then they'd finally get a chance to go out on a shoot and be like a boom pusher or a cable wrangler. They used to actually call that the position, the cable wrangler, or it was cable man, and generically it's cable person, more proper. But that was kind of fading away. Now there's still that position, and it's still very valuable to have a utility sound technician or sound utility technician, SUT, and you come up. And then after a while, because the sound utility technician is doing second boom operating, you come up to be a boom operator, and you spend a number of years. Many of the big mixers, even today, still go back to their boom operating days, where they had a whole career in boom operating before they did what we called moving up. I just saw an old movie from the 1960s, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember the name. And I noticed that one of our legends of those movies of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Jack Solomon was the mixer, and Joe Kenworthy was the boom operator. And he had that whole career as a boom operator before he became a mixer, and he did the entire run of the show NYPD. And what was that, 11 seasons as the mixer, and had a number of Emmy nominations for sound. And he is still mixing on, I can't remember. That's one of the advantages of getting old folk. But he's still out there mixing. So yeah, we had that system. Now, I came in a little differently. I started out in radio, and I was a radio engineer and a radio production person. And yes, folks, I was Madman Michaels, a radio DJ. All the hits that fits. And I came from running the production equipment and the studio console and so forth. And I got into television and then films, coming across always being the mixer. And I have to tell you that was the biggest disadvantage, because I completely, absolutely depended on my boom operator, because in the grown-up world of doing, the major movies with the big money behind it, it's all about getting that mic where it needs to be when the actors are talking. And it's not like in radio where the mic is hanging right in front of you and it's there when you turn it on. My boom operators had to get the mic where it needed to be. And the first thing I noticed about them was that they would come in first thing in the morning and grab the day's work, what they call the sides, and they would start learning the dialogue. And a good boom operator would know the dialogue better than the actors. The actors only had to learn their cues and their lines. They didn't have to really know all the other lines. They just had to know where they come in and what they say. The boom operator had to know everybody's line all the way through the scene so that the boom operator would be able to move that microphone and point that microphone, what we call cueing, from one actor to the next. And they were brilliant at doing that. Brilliant at doing that. And that's what got the sound. Because if I'm sitting over there with a recorder and some volume knobs, level controls, and the boom operator doesn't get the mic where it needs to be, then what can I do with my knobs? Right. So now, let me explain, where does the mic need to be? In Hawaii, we do this thing where we go shaka. That's the hang loose, right? Like this. But you know, it applies, and I've been using this in my classes and some of my boom men. I have one of the boom men that worked with me on Baywatch is also teaching a class, and he tells his students the same thing I do about this, is here's where the boom goes. It goes from here to here. Now keep in mind, it's out here in front of us, and because of the way the camera lens is going like this, that means that it actually can get so that it's sort of on a straight line, and you say, wow, that's actually cutting into the forehead. But because the camera is coming like this and the boom is out here, so they miss each other. I'll do it sideways like that, and they miss each other. But this is the close-up, and this is the wide shot. And that's all the difference that you need. Because remember, wide is back left to right. It's not up and down. And watch movies, folks. Watch your movies, and you'll see that those, pardon me, stupid shots where you leave 11 feet of headroom over the actor so you can see the sign, that's not how it's done. The dialogue all comes in shots, and when the shot gets bigger, you don't see more air above the actors, you see more of the actor below at the bottom of the shot. The faces, you don't put the face as a little dot in the center of the frame. That's not how it works, folks. That's not good storytelling. Watch the movies you like and you'll see that. And I told my class one day, this just a couple years ago, I told my class, we were talking about this and where the boom is, and that booming is still the best because of the clothing rustle and the quality of the sound and so forth. And that night, I happened to watch a movie with, give me a second now, Eagle Eye, with Sheila LaBeouf. Relax, hold it. With one of our finest actors of our generation, right? Oh, unbelievable actor. And so in this Eagle Eye movie, it comes to a point in the movie where they are running across this field, and they go to the big shots, and you see big electrical towers, and the wires are they're breaking and falling down and coming after them to try to electrocute them or whatever, and they're running through the field, and then it's Sheila and his leading lady, and they're running through the field, and then they talk. And when they talk, they go to shots like this, the two of them. They don't talk in that great big wide shot. They wide and tall shot. They talk in a two-shot. And it was probably shot from a camera car or some sort of camera vehicle tracking them, and it was probably boomed. So, I mean, that's how the big movies are done. I know you can't, or I don't have the money, I don't have the time, but it's about your storytelling, and if your sound disconnects your audience from your story, I think Jeff Wexler calls it a disconnect. I call it sucking, because you are sucked out of the story and into the seat in a movie theater watching a movie. And when you start thinking about it as a movie, you have lost your audience. So as a storyteller, you want your story, and that's why scenes typically will start and establish, and then they come in, and the dialogue is between the people in the story.
Very good.
Okay, more questions.
More questions. So you know a lot about microphones. We're using one here today, Sennheiser MD46.
Right.
What do you know about the history about that?
The MD46. Well, somewhere along the line with all my classes, I actually have a microphone day early in the terms, and I bring in a whole bunch of different microphones. Okay, microphones for movie making are different than microphones for live shows. They're different than microphones for record albums and studio recording and symphony recording. There are different microphones for different purposes, and frequent question, what's the best microphone?
Right.
Were you going to ask me that?
Well, if I asked you that, you would have a pithy answer, I'm guessing.
It depends. Very, very big answer in our business. It depends is the answer to a lot of questions. Depends what you're doing. But keep in mind, the microphones we use in our movie making are typically, on the set, we're picking up dialogue, the people talking. We don't need super wide musical, high fidelity, studio quality response. And the microphones that we used to use had frequency responses that went from about, and this isn't that far back, it's certainly in my lifetime. I'm not talking about the first talkies, but even in the 70s, we were using microphones that had a frequency response from about 100 to about 8 or 9, maybe 10,000 hertz. Now, most microphones you buy are going to go lower. They're going to go down to 50 hertz or maybe even lower. They're going to go up to 15, 18, even 20 kilohertz. But the human voices, male or female, don't go there. So you don't really need all that response. Now, this microphone was specifically designed. There was first let me tell you, the very popular microphone you still to this day see on television all the time. You see your news reporters holding it, and it's an electro voice microphone called the RE50. It's also sometimes called the hammer, because in a pinch, that's what you can do with it. You can hammer stuff. It is rugged. It has a relatively limited frequency response. It doesn't go way up there to 18, 20 kilohertz, but it covers people talking. And in that particular case, the microphone has several attributes for being handheld. It has an outer case that they're holding and an inner case, and there's some shock mounting rubbery material in there so that it doesn't transmit noise, because a lot of the TV reporters that are holding these mics have a lot of expensive jewelry that they get because they're making so damn much money, and they keep making pinging noises on the mics. So handheld noise is one issue that we cover, and that's why it's a little bit fatter than usual. The other thing is it has a big wind filter built right in, so that you don't necessarily have to use the little foam guy, which is not a big deal one way or another. And it is omnidirectional. Now, synonym here, folks, omnidirectional or non-directional mean the same thing. Omni means all directions, and non-directional means no particular direction, but they're the same thing. And again, when the reporters are holding them doing the interview, going back and forth, the reporters will have a tendency to pull the mic away before their interview subject stops talking, because they know they're getting ready to say something, and then they're late getting it out there. Well, with this microphone, when I take that away and I bring it back, and I take it away and I bring it back, you can hear the difference in the sound. So This microphone is a directional mic, and the reason they did a directional mic is NBC, in getting ready for the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, which I was at, by the way, for NBC, and they commissioned Sennheiser to make them a microphone for handheld interviewing use, but they wanted it to be directional because they were instructing all of their people using them not to even bring them back and ask questions, because they just wanted the talking head. And they wanted to get less of the background noise, because when I put this over there, you hear more of the NAB show out there. So that was why they wanted a directional version. But the RE50 is the world champion interview mic. There's another microphone, the Shure SM58, which is based on something from the mid-1960s, folks. That mic has its ancestry in the 1960s. It is still unstoppable for live performances. And the SM57 doesn't have the ice cream cone top, but it is the same element. And they are built to be rugged, and they do not have a wide, flat frequency response. They actually have a frequency response that's designed to make it a very articulate microphone. They call that a presence boost. For boom microphones, Sennheiser has been and still is a reigning championship with their short shotguns. And funny, because they call them shotguns because they kind of resemble a barrel of maybe a 12 gauge shotgun, but actually you should think of the shotgun microphone more as a rifle microphone, because it's the narrower pickup pattern, so that when it's up here above us, it's just picking up the sound right where it's pointed in that sound bubble. And there are some contenders in that short shotgun category from companies, but Sennheiser, whenever we ask the question amongst ourselves, if you could only have one microphone, it's the Sennheiser 416T. Sennheiser has been trying to discontinue that microphone for about 22 years. And they discontinued its longer brother, the 816, which was exactly the same microphone inside a longer tube for a little better directionality at a distance. But they've been trying to discontinue it because they make new microphones, new models that they think are better and that they can make probably better profit margins on. But the 416T, everybody still says, no, I want to have that. And if I can only take one mic with me, that's the one, because it sounds great. It does have an articulation response. It sounds great. It picks up in front. It rejects at the back and the sides, and is bulletproof. And
Everything you want in a mic.
everything you want in a mic. It's also about $1,000. There are alternatives I recommend to my students that go down to about $450. There are alternatives from Rode and from Audio-Technica. There are also more expensive choices like the Schoeps short shotgun, which is almost $2,000, and the DPA short shotgun, which is almost $2,000. Outdoors, most folks will use a short shotgun and some wind protection on a boom pole. Indoors, a short shotgun can also be used, but the weakness of that tube design is that in a reverberant place where sound is bouncing around off the walls, the ceiling, gymnasiums, kitchens, bathrooms. You know why people sing in the shower, don't you?
Reverb. Natural reverb.
Because they sound so good. It's that reverb. Okay, but that happens to be emphasized by that tube construction of the short shotgun. So for indoor spaces, hypercardioids, which don't have a tube on them, they're just more like this microphone with the element on the end. are very popular. And they range in price from about $500 up to $2,000. Folks, I got to tell you something. If you're going to make your living at it, yeah, you want to buy good stuff. You want to buy rugged stuff. You want to be buying stuff that you know the manufacturers stand behind. On the other hand, I got to tell you, nobody sitting in the audience is going to know what mic you used. Ma and Pa Kettle sitting there in their couch watching TV aren't going to sit and say to each other, you know, Ma, or you know, brother Billy, this show would have sounded a lot better if they would have used that DPA shotgun microphone. If we sound mixers don't know who did the show, and in some cases, even when we know who did the show, if we don't know what microphones they used, we cannot tell by listening.
Good stuff. One last question.
Okay.
Just one last question. I have never met anyone in my life whose first name was Senator. So we're dying to hear the story.
Okay. In my career, particularly when I lived in Hawaii for so many years, and in Hawaii when you do sound, just doing sound means that, for example, the union would call me when a concert came to town to help lay the snake cable between the stage and the sound mixing board in the back, or to help hook up the speakers or the monitors. I mean, in Hawaii, being a sound person meant you did all of the sound things. I came from radio. I did a lot of TV news, and I made some contacts, and I was a person that they had my name and phone number at the bureau desks for the major networks. And they would call me when something would happen that was newsworthy, because they wanted to hire a crew in Hawaii to go running out. And sometimes it would be for the local TV stations when there were big events. Okay, long story is going to stay long here, folks. But that meant I got to do things like cover the state legislature. I got to cover city council meetings. When I did network jobs, they would send me other places. I would cover press conferences with all sorts of people. And ultimately, they would have me traveling, and I'd be covering more major news events, including things like press conferences and even congressional hearings. One of the things I noticed is that when they would be talking, whether it was a city council meeting and the one person would say, well, I want to thank Council Member Curtis for giving me 7 whole seconds of their precious time. I'm going to yield the balance of that time to my distinguished colleague from the 5th District, Councilman Farberhopper. And at the state legislature, it'd be Representative Turkey Smith gave me. And then you get to Congress, and I was actually watching, this goes back because it's coming out in a movie now, the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings.
Oh, wow.
And Anita Hill.
Yep.
And I'm watching this, and the one senator does, and I'm going to show you something else, by the way, folks, another little trick. And the one senator goes like this and goes, what a liar. Did you see that? You wide enough? Okay. Yeah, right. You heard everything I said, covering the microphone. Dumb trick. You know, and then there was the part where they said, well, I'm going to yield 6 seconds of my valuable time to my distinguished colleague from the state of confusion, Senator Fogbound. And then Senator Fogbound says, well, thank you, Senator Filibuster. And I'm going, wait a minute, folks. If these folks are such good friends and bosom buddies and they work together all the time, wouldn't they refer to each other and call each other by their first names?
Yeah.
Bingo, the light goes on. Senator. It's a first name. And yes, I have legally changed my name to Senator Mike Michaels. And so let me just throw a couple of my senatoriums out.
Absolutely.
Okay. The answer to a lot of these questions is it depends. There just are no answers that I can give you that are guaranteed to be right for everything. It depends, okay? The other thing if you're having equipment problems, there are two really, really, really basic things you should do before you go whining on to forums and so forth, and that is to read the manual. Yes, believe it or not, you may find the answer in your manual. I know we all love quick start guides, and we all love going to chat rooms and Googling questions and having other people post replies. And so many of those replies are so far off into fantasy land. So read the manual, and if that doesn't help, contact the manufacturer. Come on, folks. Who's going to know the answer to your question if it isn't the manufacturer? I really encourage you, get out there and get that boom where it needs to be. But seriously, folks, tell your stories, but plan what you're going to do. That's where the important stuff happens, is in your pre-production planning. And then my one last plea, I got it on my hat. They're going to take an insert shot and paste it in to cover things, but practice safe sound. And safe sound means you don't blow your hearing out, because your hearing, unfortunately, is damageable, and the damage is cumulative. And what causes the damage? Loud. So even little bursts of loud are accumulating the damage to your ears. And so take care of your hearing, and when you're making your movies, when you're telling your stories, be safe on your sets. Safety, there is no substitute for safety on a set, and safety on a set is everybody's job all the time. I think it was Melrose Place that got the sound demo using the Audio Technica 4053. See, it isn't the mic that got the sound demo. It isn't the recorder that got the sound demo. A person with experience and knowledge of what they're doing can get good sound with mediocre equipment. Somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, or that doesn't pay attention, or doesn't think about it, can get junk, caca doo-doo, with the most expensive equipment. It isn't about the arrows, it's about the archer. And it's also about what is the level of your production going to be. Some productions will take more time to get good sound on the set. It's always better to get it on the set. Capture the best you can while the actors are performing, because when you start trying to fix stuff up later, you're now actually starting to subtract from that performance that you got instead of adding to it.
And it's always a compromise then, and that may actually even result in some cases, extreme, where they have to edit differently because they don't have anything that's usable.
Right. A long time ago, there used to be a major concern about overlaps, because movies were made with single cameras. And a lot of DPs still like to do that because they carefully compose and light each shot to make it the best possible image. Again, they'll go crazy, whether it's film or camera, choosing the camera that they like best, or the imager that they like best, and even the film stock that they like best. But it still depends on composing and capturing and lighting that shot. You've got to spend the time and effort doing that. And when you start doing multiple shots simultaneously, you are making major compromises to that. Now, I understand that that's the way things go, but also make sure you get some shots where you get good sound, because it's a lot easier, and I think I said this in a different context, it is a lot easier and possible to paste good close-up sound over bigger, wider images where you don't see the lips moving quite as clearly. And this thing about overlaps came from the fact that when they were shooting in those styles, of single camera. If the camera was on one actor, then the mic would be on the actor on camera. And sometimes the off-camera actor would be several feet away sitting next to the camera to try to get that really good eye line. I mean, I remember early on when I was watching movies as a little kid, I was always amazed. I said, where is that camera? Because I see the other shot and it's not there. You know, and you see that the movie is actually pasted together from all those shots. Well, if the actor that was off camera overlapped with the actor that was on camera, the sound of that actor would sound bad, and that they'd have to work hard to get around it. But I also have a suggestion, and that is, you know, all this craze about overlaps. You know, oh yeah, no, go ahead, I want you to overlap. You can make an overlap in post out of non-overlap dialogue. You cannot pull it apart in post. And I urge you to take some time and listen to conversations. Listen to people talking. When people are talking, they don't overlap. In real life, people don't overlap. If I start talking while you're still talking, you're going to stop talking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut you off. And you can create that in post, but you can't take it apart. But people don't keep talking. When the other person starts talking, one of them gives up. Okay, an exercise that I give my students in sound class, two of the first things I do, one of them is I say, go to the movies, but, well, even before I send them to the movies, I say, okay, watch a television program with the picture off. In other words, put a cover over the TV set. Just listen to it. I said, okay, then the next assignment is watch a television program with the sound turned off. You'll start to get some things about how the role that sound has as a partner in telling your story. Okay. Another exercise, and these are really kind of simple things, and you don't have to be in a class to do them, is go someplace and listen. So if you're thinking about making a movie and you've got a scene in a cafe or a coffee shop or a restaurant or a museum or a park, whatever it is, go to that place and sit down and listen. Listen to the place around you and make notes of what you hear and what you don't hear. And there's two things that come out of this exercise. One, if you go to a real location like that, those are the noises you are going to have to deal with. And if you make a setup, those are the sounds that you're going to have to add on to make that set sound like the place it's supposed to be. So you get two things out of that one exercise. But you'll understand, for example, if you're in a coffee shop, you'll understand that while a little bit of or as we call the hubba hubba or the brouhaha of the coffee shop, a little bit of that is going to be there. Yeah. What you don't want are the distinct sounds that are going to suck you out of the story, or sounds that are going to bump and bounce around as you cut from the A shot to the B shot to the C shot. And when it's not going to be there, you shoot the close-up, and then you shoot the reverse of that close-up, the other close-up, 3 hours later, and the sound is completely different. That's going to make a bump every time you edit. So, you know, if the espresso machine making steam starts going shh, then you need to do it over. On the other hand, if it's just people talking in the background, well, bottom line is probably when you put it all together, might be a good idea to get some wild track of the coffee shop. And even if you shoot on a set, get permission, and get some sound in the coffee shop so that you can smooth it all out in post-production. The magic is made in post-production. The Emmys for sound and the Oscars for sound, you start with good production tracks, but the Emmys and the Oscars are really won in the post-production.
Thanks again.